I got this Titano stroller accordion quite a few years ago now. At the time, I needed an accordion for a practice accordion downstairs, and I was very intrigued with this Quint Free Bass system that was on this instrument. And as it turned out, I got it home, I started playing around with it a little bit, and there was things that I found that were sort of awkward about it. And so I didn't have time to really put the time in to really do much with it. So since this is a converter, it converts between stradella and free bass. I mostly just had it on the stradella system, and it kind of, the free bass sort of just lay there for quite some time until recently. I had more free time and I picked it up and I started messing around with the Quint system, and I found some things to like about it. So I thought I'd make kind of a short personal review of what I found maybe difficult and some things that I really enjoyed. Okay, so what exactly is the Quint Free Bass system? I think you could just as easily call it the stradella free bass system, because it's taking the bass rows of the stradella system, it's getting rid of all the chord buttons and replacing those with 2 more octaves of basses, or single notes. And this theoretically allows you to play melodies in the left hand over up to three octaves of range. I think one could make an argument that while stradella is laid out pretty brilliantly for doing chord work, playing melodies in the left hand is pretty secondary. Let's take just something as simple as a C major scale and run through that, and you'll see that you start out here on C, you go up 2 buttons to D, back down where you were, but over to the counterbass row, E, over to the home row again, but down 1, up 2 more buttons to G, over to counterbass, down 2 buttons, up 2 buttons on the counterbass row, and then to the home row C. That's about as a counterintuitive way of navigating a major scale as probably any instrument does. Then you take that and you multiply it 3 times over the left hand, and you've got a lot of work to deal with. But just the same, let's do a little bit of comparison between stradella and the Quint system on just scales. Here's the C major scale again. And if you notice, when I go to that last C, it almost sounds like I'm ascending to the next octave, because everything was moving up and we have those multiple reeds going at the same time, and your ear kind of pulls to the next higher one. That's not true with the Quint system, but it's not supposed to be. You get to the next octave by moving over. Now, I don't know if you can see that. We might put a little graphic out here. And when we go to that higher octave, it's the most athletic leap, because it's going from the counterbass row over to the high home row. So and then I go way over here. And again. So that's a little bit of a workout. It's not that bad. It falls pretty good on this scale, but there's bigger problems. So you can see that I'm moving over from the B to the high C, and then I make that move. That would be great if it was like stradella. You go back to stradella, That same finger pattern I'm doing exactly the same finger combination, and it sounds pretty good. It sounds believable, like I'm ascending a scale. Totally different on this, and much more time intensive. So there's the C major scale. Let's go and do the D major scale. Oh, well, before I could get up to that note on the C major scale, before I had to cross over, but here it's one lower. So now I have to cross over a note before I did on the C major scale. Feels totally different because I have to make that motion sooner. Maybe totally is unfair, but it feels quite a bit different to make that change. And unfortunately, there's about 6 or 7 different finger combinations to get through all the major scales. It's not a great deal different than learning those scales on the right hand. The fingering's different on many of the major scales. I think there might be more on the left hand here. And it's also that on the right hand, we're always moving up. But here we're moving up, we're moving across, we're moving down. It's not a real intuitive process. However, I've spent a little bit of time on it, and not a great deal of time. And it does get easier. Your body learns it. So it's doable, but it's difficult. But what about chords? Now the stradella system has limitations, but it also has this high convenience factor. Like we did on the scales, we have the fingering of the scale. You can move it around and play that scale, same fingering all across all of the instrument. Similarly, when you grab chord combinations, they work serviceably well everywhere, and it has to do with having those multiple octaves. The ear kind of puts things together, and it makes it work fairly well. So you can take a fairly complex chord combination like a sharp 11 chord and move it around, and it sounds pretty good all the way across. So. You know, it works. It works on every part of the accordion. It works equally well. Now, the downside is, of course, you're not able to control the voicing, so you've got just kind of this mash of tones, and you don't have any way of controlling what notes are higher or lower. Totally different with the Quint system. You have all kinds of control over your voicing if your hands can stretch, and of course you have limited number of notes because 4 is about all you can manage unless you use your thumb. But you can get these really nice voicings, taking something as simple as a C major chord and opening up the voicing makes it much more lovely. I mean, sticking thirds together, let's see, is one of my least favorite things. You can do that on the left hand, and it's much more beautiful. A really nice voicing. The downside is that you can't move it around and have it stay the same because the octaves keep changing. So I go down to an F chord, get this sort of unpleasant sounding thing. It's now the root, which is an F, is higher than the fifth, and so it's not so lovely. So you can move over and grab the higher C over here. Better. Oops, happens again. I think there's only just those two motions for the major chord, so it's not terribly difficult. When you get into more complex chord combinations, more difficult yet. So I'd say the strength is that you can build the chord combinations. The weakness is they're not always the same. If you want a pleasant voicing, you have to reconfigure the shape of the chord. Kind of a lot of extra work. So those are kind of my biggest complaints, is trying to play scales, trying to play chord combinations requires a lot of extra work that you don't have to do in stradella because the fingerings change all the time. Well, I've spent probably most of the time being negative about this instrument. I do want to end on a positive note because I think there's a lot to be said about this strange little instrument. I mean, one, just being able to do your own voicings on the left hand, even if you have to restructure them a little bit, is really, really good. It's good for your mind, and having those open sounds that you just can't get with stradella is a real bonus. Being able to jump octaves without having to do some sort of switch click is great. And that possibility of doing melodic lines in the left hand with counter lines in the right hand. I've only done a little bit of that, but it's really satisfying, and there's a lot to enjoy about it. And especially with the Titano that's a converter, you've got a good secondary instrument, or possibly a primary instrument. I mean, they make better instruments than this one. And then you've got this Quint system to play with that I think has a lot of little possibilities. It may not be the best free bass system in the world, but we know stradella, and there's a certain amount that transfers over from our knowledge there. So I've been enjoying it. I hope to spend some more time with it. I know the more time one puts into something, the more they get out of it, and I hope to get a little bit more out of this instrument. Thanks for watching. Oh, I meant to say, I did write a little song using some of the favorite techniques and stuff that I've been able to do so far. Some of the things that I really enjoy about this, and I think there's a link that's attached to this posting, so you might check that out if you got time. Thanks.